No Other Life presents Upstaged. Daily routine. One of the most shocking things, I believe, that really caused me to realize that this Parkinson's thing was totally for real is something that wakes me up many of the days of the week. And it's hard to describe what that is, and I'm not entirely sure whether it's unique to me. I'm sure it's not totally unique to me, but I don't really have a feeling how common it really is. The way that I describe it is that in my sternum, it kind of feels like a very low level electric shock, as if you touch something that's not completely grounded, but it's not like you're putting your finger inside of an outlet. It's just something that causes this electrical energy to kind of radiate from my chest. And at first, I found it rather alarming. But I have come to realize that that's, in a way, my internal alarm clock. And some people seem to describe something like this, and they refer to it as an internal tremor. So I kind of use that word now instead of shock. But the interesting thing for that is that, generally speaking, the people who are talking to us about Parkinson's and the symptoms that we might face and studying us in the examination room at the doctor's office, they generally don't have Parkinson's disease. And it's something that can be described in many ways, but at the same time, they're really doing their best to be very observational. And of course, doing this year in and year out, I'm sure they have seen just about everything now. But in a way, we who have Parkinson's are kind of leading the charge on what we're experiencing. So I try to be very attentive and tuned in to what it is that I'm experiencing on any given day. Well, as I was composing this particular piece, I didn't set out to do what it eventually did. But it was one of those things where I was just improvising and then came to realize that what I was improvising was starting to feel reminiscent of something particular that I was more familiar with. And so this piece became a day in the life of Parkinson's in my body. And it starts with that internal tremor, which kind of just feels like a beacon almost from afar. And that's what tells me to get up. And over time, I have learned a few things that I need to do in the last period of my sleep, assuming that I have sleep on that given night. And what I do is I've trained myself to be able to take my morning pills and then go back to sleep more often than not. And that's a really good thing because in that first half hour, even hour after I have gotten up, if I have not taken the pills, it can be a real mess. It's hard to get down the stairs, hard to brush my teeth, hard to do just about anything. And the only thing that I can do is head down to the elliptical machine and try to exercise as briskly as possible. And over the course of that 20-25 minutes, I definitely start to get my bearings and faculties and feel much more like a human. But this piece was written at a point in time when I hadn't figured that out yet. So now, whereas I usually wake up feeling fairly good because I took the pill an hour ago and went back to sleep, at this point in time, I was always getting up feeling that cogwheel rigidity and all the other signs that just feel quintessentially Parkinsonian. And so the beginning of the piece, after that opening beacon of sorts, is reminiscent of what it feels like to go through that monotony. It's a very repetitive theme. It doesn't really go anywhere. And it just is reminiscent of the fact that until that first set of pills catches up with me, I can be kind of useless. And you do get to hear and feel that energy that comes from the pills kicking in a few seconds into the piece. It's pretty noticeable how that kind of crescendo leads in. And then at that point, it really just starts to feel more graceful almost. Sometimes the movements of Parkinson's and the pills are referred to as dance-like. And I think that's really pretty a good way of saying it. If we're trying to not lean into the Parkinson's, we can stumble. We can do all kinds of things that are very uncomfortable and unpleasant to be on the inside of. But what I've experienced is that if I do lean into it, if I recognize, hey, this is me, this is what is going on right now, and almost turn it into a dance motions, I tend to have a better experience on that day or that period of time. It's really pretty striking. There is a style of motion and dance called eurythmics. And the basic principle of eurythmics is that you are moving to the music, trying to illustrate a particular line. And as you do that, you really start to realize that the entire body is part of the dance. The entire body is part of this ritual of motion. And so much about Parkinson's and succeeding as best we can stems from this realization that we need to be intentional in all that we do. We need to be intentional with sitting and standing and walking and running, swallowing and chewing, and all of these things require a concerted effort. And this is not specific to Parkinson's. Anyone who follows this advice universally will have a good experience, I think. But it's not natural. We want to be doing 10 things at once, and that's not always possible. It's definitely not always practical. So this piece ends up being about routine of daily life. And I feel now like I have more daily routines than I ever have in my life, because I'm trying to succeed as much as I possibly can despite what's going on. And most days I do well with that, but it's really because I stick to this constant routine. Some daily activities that I'm always thinking about are that early morning exercise. It's taking pills spread exactly 4 hours throughout the day, which is what works for me. It's eating at the correct times. I space out my protein related to the pills in such a way that there are 2-hour blocks in which I don't eat any protein, because the protein in the digestive system will compete with the levodopa, which is trying to get into the brain, and you just end up having a faulty dosage, and you need to wait another 4 hours. I try to do Zumba. I try to play piano. I try to use my brain. Lately, I've been trying to do speech exercises that are required. And lately, I've been also doing neuro rehab, so there's a lot of exercises specific to that. And you see where your day starts to get away from you. And by the end of it, honestly, I'm exhausted. And so it's time to chill out and watch TV with my wife and eat a dinner and take pills and so on, and it all catches up to me. And I often will have a great day, and then sit down. And once I'm in that chair and recline a bit, all of my guard goes down. And we had some trouble with this initially because I'm not by any stretch offering her the best of me at that hour of the day. And there's a lot of trouble to that. It's a lot of difficulty because who should get the best of me but the one who I chose to spend my life with? And that's not always the way that it works. And that's not just a Parkinson's thing. Again, this is something that a lot of people go through when they're in the middle years of their career and maybe having family, children, elder care, all sorts of volunteer and civic obligations. The world can become very complex. And through it all, I think it's most important that we begin to realize that these daily routines are for us. There are things that we must do for other people, but there are things we must do for ourselves. And with Parkinson's, there is no way around that. Everybody knows that this is what is the case. And I certainly can tell on the days that I don't use the elliptical at sunrise, I feel it throughout the day. I'm a little lethargic. I have trouble starting my gait, things like that. So all in all, it's a very strange thing to be going through for me, but the universal message here is the same message as the whole No Other Life project. You've got to take care of yourselves because, after all, we have no other life. And I think that's of extreme importance, and I'm also not entirely sure that we always get that. So please, take care of yourselves as often and as readily as you possibly can. The tune you're about to hear is called Kinetikos, which is from the Greek meaning motion. Parkinson's is full of vocabulary related to motion. Bradykinesia is a slowness of motion. Dyskinesia is a faulty motion. And kinetikos is the root of all those words. mean the world to me if you'd head over to rickchome.com and make a donation for that piece. I've designated it as one in which all proceeds will go directly toward Parkinson's-related organizations that I work with and hold dear. Anything you can give will help those causes, especially at this time of April, which is the awareness month for Parkinson's disease. And you can find all that information at rickchome.com. If you have organizations that you hold dear and you would prefer to support them directly, please do so. It doesn't matter how they get their money. It just matters that the right people are being able to use all of the resources that we are giving them. Both Upstaged and the No Other Life Project are independently conceived and managed by me, Rick Seaholm, ad-free and without interruption for all listeners. I appreciate your support. Please subscribe, leave a review, and spread the word. It's the number one way to keep all this going. Friends, you have no other life, and it's the grandest improv session of them all. Own what you bring to the scene and share it with all whom you meet.